All right, everyone. Thanks for coming in today. We appreciate you joining us at one of our monthly Growth Lab series. This is our monthly series that we do a deep dive into different strategies our agency has been using for the past several years to help scale different types of organizations and startups. Last month, we talked about ChatGPT, and we showed how we're actively been using ChatGPT for the last 2 years and how we're using it for content creation, ad creation, landing page copy, email copy, and so on and so forth, even customer persona development. The prior month to that, in our first webinar series, we also talked about server-side tracking and how that can enable you to be able to have proper attribution and proper tracking and to be able to scale your campaigns. So feel free to look at those prior webinars that we've had. This month, we're going to talk about advanced meta strategies. This is really doing a deep dive in how to set up your Facebook and Instagram ads to be able to scale them up. So a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Hamlet Azarian. I'm the CEO and founder of Azarian Growth Agency. We're a data-driven full funnel growth agency, particularly specializing in helping early stage startups. These are startups that are, raised a seed round or a Series A. We partner with them and we help develop their go-to-market strategy and we help them scale up. I'm a lifetime learner. I've been, doing marketing for close to a little bit over 12 to 13 years in this particular space. And what I particularly believe in is learning is a process of not only just reading, but also doing and also making mistakes in the process of that. One of the things I do enjoy is sharing all of our mistakes or all of our lessons learned or some of the things that we've learned along the way and providing it in our monthly webinar series, which is the Growth Lab series. We also have a podcast that we recently launched, which is the Growth Ventures podcast, and that you'll be able to listen from different founders, VCs, and learn from them as we learn from them as well and into different conversations that we have. That's also totally free. And in addition to that, I'll talk a little bit more of that at the end of this webinar, is we're launching our Growth Academy, again, totally free for anyone who would like to participate, where we're going to be giving full merit-based scholarships to 25 students and young professionals who want to learn all the data-driven marketing strategies that we have. And we're going to be putting them into teams and providing an opportunity for them to partner with different startups and work with startups directly. The startups themselves are going to be applying to be part of the curriculum as well. And I'll discuss a little bit all that at the end of the webinar as well. But now let's get started. So today we'll go over some of the basics, obviously, to be able to set up a campaign properly. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, feel free to always add it in the Q&A or in the chat. One of our team members will try to address them. And I will also stop throughout the webinar and answer specific questions as I in the different sections. Don't wait till the end. As if you have any questions, feel free to add throughout the webinar. So today we'll talk about campaigns, ad setups, and ads themselves, the proper structures, and how to be able to set up the campaigns correctly. We'll also discuss the pixel and the difference of setting up client-side pixel versus server-side pixel. We'll get into how you actually optimize ads and how you're able to scale them. And then we'll talk about the impact of AI in content and ad creation. We'll also show you some live demos where we'll be going through and showing you examples of either proper pixel setup or, as I mentioned earlier, how to create ads using ChatGPT, but also how to start using Midjourney for idea creation, as well as finding imagery that you could potentially be running for ads as well. So first, before we get started, we have a quick poll. If you could take a few seconds and answer the questions, that'd be great. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. So if you can answer, we've had registrations from all over the globe, and thank you for coming today. And then in addition, we'll also like to know, on a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with meta ad strategies, so Facebook and Instagram strategies? If you could answer that question, that would be great. And then lastly, how much either you or your organization today is actively spending a month on Meta? You're not spending anything, you're spending less than 1,000, you're spending 2 to 10,000, you're spending 10 to 25,000, or you're spending more than $25,000 a month in advertising. All right, as everyone answers, we will get started. So first about meta advertising campaigns and Facebook. So what are the top 9 reasons why some accounts are able to scale and some just don't, right? So this is really the big lessons we've learned along the way, and why accounts sometimes just are not able to scale, because these are the different things that are occurring to the account themselves, and these are the problem areas that you need to look at closely whenever you're auditing an account, or you're wondering why it's not working and why it's not actually performing the results you need. One of the ones is the audience segment is not large enough. So what we mean by that is when you set your audience targeting, you've gone too granular. You've gone way, way too deep. And because of that, Meta is not able to get enough conversion information in, and it's not able through that to be able to find the specific audience you're looking for. So the more specific you got in thinking that you're doing the right thing and trying to give it guidance to find your actual target audience, it's actually hindering you and hurting you, and it's not allowing you to scale up. So there's typically an issue there. So in the beginning, it does make sense to be specific, but when you get past that hurdle, when you have enough conversion data into the account, this is one of the reasons why your account's not able to scale. The other reason is you're just trying to grow it too fast. And what do we mean by that is, especially new ad accounts, there has to be a period where you're warming it up, where you're feeding it in the appropriate data, and the data are different conversion events. And as these conversions go into the system, as you start getting more and more the right metrics or the right signals, Meta's ML algorithms are then able to optimize and find you more audience, more individuals that will be able to deliver these results for you. So that's really also important. And we'll also dig into a lot of these different things as we go through the webinar, but I just want you guys to be aware of what are some of the reasons. The next one is the conversion events themselves are not firing. So what we mean by that is you are either doing client-side conversion still, which is causing the ad campaigns to have particularly misattribution, or the conversion themselves are not firing every single time where you think they are. And this is giving you the lack of data that you need in order for the account to start scaling up. The other one is you're not refreshing your ad creatives in a timely manner. What generally happens is when a new ad is launched, there is a learning period that the algorithm goes through. Normally it's about 7 days, but the first 24 to 48 hours are really critical, which allows it to understand, is this image, headline, text resonating with the target audience? And that could be things as engagement metrics, such as likes, comments, clicks, and so on and so forth. And if it gets enough of these metrics, then the ad creative itself has already been deemed a good ad, and it starts showing to a wider audience. But what happens over time is that there becomes this notion of ad fatigue, and you start seeing your CPM rates, which is a cost per 1,000 impressions, start scaling up. And as that becomes a signal for you that you need to refresh your ads and put a new ad set in. The next one is your campaign structure itself is not set up incorrectly. So meaning you have the wrong goals that you're trying to achieve for the wrong type of campaign. And in addition to that, you might have ad sets that are competing with each other. So you have audience overlap. And this combination of these two things is causing your campaign to hit this lull or have inefficient attribution or inefficient spend. So you're not able to, at this point, be able to scale it up either. Another reason is the ad sets that, as I talked about, the ad sets competing with each other. The other one is the pixel is not set up and firing correctly. So where this occurs is you might have forgotten to set up the pixel, or you might have thought you had the pixel set up in itself. But if you don't have this actually working correctly and you're not testing it, or your engineers might have done something and the pixel goes away, quickly the ads themselves will start to fall apart, and you will quickly notice your CPMs rising and your spends actually going down if you had it on a performance measurement. The next one is the budget itself is too small. So for example, if you start setting a goal and you start realizing your cost per conversion might be, let's say, $2, you need to get at least a minimum of 50 conversions a week in order for it to be able to have enough data for it to optimize. So the combination of the two times the 50, you need $100 budget a week bare minimum for it to go through this learning cycle. We typically recommend a little bit larger budget in order for it to give it room, because it would be inefficient in the beginning for it to learn. The next one is that there's inaccurate or missing attribution. Again, this has to do with the data and infrastructure. So if you are missing all the data points, you will not be able to scale your campaigns. So these are common things that we're always actively looking for whenever you do an audit of any type of Facebook or Meta advertising. So first, let's talk about just the structure. I think it's kind of important to realize Meta structure. It's very much similar to most ad platforms, including Google, including TikTok, and so on and so forth, where there's a high level campaign. Within the campaign, you're able to set up multiple ad sets. And within the ad sets themselves, you're able to set up different ads. So throughout this webinar, we're going to go through each one of these sections and talk about what are the different things you can optimize for them. So first, the campaign. Really in the campaign area, what you're really trying to do is you're setting up objectives. But before you even set up objectives, there is this notion of a special ads category that's really important to understand. Here in certain segments, so if you happen to be doing any type of lending or loans or any type of financing, you will fall into what is deemed as the credit category. So you would have to select this, otherwise all of your ads would get rejected. Another one is called employment. So if you're doing any type of jobs, or if you're doing internships, or if you're doing professional certification, a lot of your ads will fall into the employment category. The next one is housing. Similar, if you're selling any home, if you're selling any property, or any type of insurance or mortgages, it would fall into housing. And if you're doing any type of political campaigns, it will fall into the special social issues, election, or politics. What these all do is it triggers the campaign. Remember, it's not the whole ad account. It triggers the campaign to lose some of its targeting capabilities. So it puts the pressure really more on the data and the ad creatives for Facebook's algorithm to then go find appropriate audience members that will more or less be who you're looking for. So you get a very much limiting targeting capabilities. So now let's talk a little bit about the campaigns themselves, right? So there's different types of campaign objectives. So the campaigning objectives vary from sales, leads, engagement, app promotion, traffic, as well as awareness. So on the sales side, it's really, you're trying to have some sort of purchase event occurring. This typically is done with a lot of e-commerce type of sites where you're running a sales ad and you're really trying to measure conversion. The next one is leads. This is typically done in a lot of B2B or B2C type of ad campaigns that requires a sales team to be able to follow up, to be able to inform and get on either a demo call or educate the consumer. So these will be in a form of instant form ads, which are ads that can, directly on the Facebook platform, you can complete a lead, or you can drive them also to your website and complete a lead. The next one is engagement ads. These are really typically top of the funnel type of ads. So normally you're running like a video ad, or you're running a carousel ad, and you're really trying to build brand awareness on the engagement ad a little bit, but you want users to actually engage with the creative itself. So the reason you're doing that is you might want them to watch a certain time of the video. You might have wanted them to watch half of the video, or a third of the video, or 3/4 of the video. So you want Facebook's algorithms to start optimizing for people who might be more interested in the content that you have. And with that information, then you're able to create different lookalike audiences, or you're able to create different targeting audiences, which we'll talk about in a little bit as well. The next one is traffic. This is normally one of the first type of campaigns you would set up, as all you're really looking for is sort of having people click and land on your website, or click and land on your ad, or engage with your ad. The reason I say it's normally one of the first ones is because it's one of the easier ones to get off the ground with not enough data into the platform itself. So for you to start collecting information on who's actually engaging with your ad copies themselves. The next one is awareness campaigns. So this is really ran to more get lift or awareness of your brand. There's really, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to have one user see an ad multiple times, and the different placements that ad will resonate for the user. And you're also able to put frequency caps so you don't oversaturate the user. So the user might see this ad on a Facebook feed, and then if they go on Instagram, they might be able to see it on Reels or Stories. And then if they come back on desktop, they might be able to see it inside of the right-hand banner. But it's causing the user to recollect and remember the brand, and for them to be able to, for you to be able to at least later on follow up with another campaign to be able to convert them. So this is really a top of the funnel sort of metric. The next one is app promotion. So if you have a mobile app and you really want to be able to get users to download your app, one of the campaigns you would set up is an app promotion cap, or if you have specific events that you want users to do within your app, you would do this. The app promotion one also involves you having to install sort of an MMP, which is a mobile measurement platform product, or to Facebook's SDK for you to be able to set the information that you need back into the ad platform so you can actually run these. So these are all the campaign levels. So when you go through campaign levels, first you will determine if it's a special ad category. And then from there, based off of your campaign goals, you will be picking one of these objectives. So I know I briefly discussed the retargeting when I was talking about the campaign objectives. I think it's really important to realize how the campaigns themselves all work together. And this is sort of one of the secret sauces of really getting Facebook ads to work. And we'll kind of talk about this a little bit later too. So you have to almost look at all the data you have, and you have data access to, and how to utilize all of these elements. Some of it might be within the Facebook ad platform themselves. So you might run a cheaper ad unit, right? So like going back here, awareness campaigns typically are really low on CPM rates, or engagement campaigns themselves. So you might decide to run this top of the funnel, sort of ad campaign that will give you a really low CPM because it's a much broader purchase program. And within that, you're able to discover and get users that engage with the ad. And then within Facebook, you're able to create audiences that then you can use to retarget. These audiences might not have even come onto your website yet. And you're able to then at that point be able to run more specific conversion ads. The next thing here on retargeting could be the data that you have within your system. So you might have emails from users who have opted into your email list that you could upload to Facebook itself, or you might have phone numbers that you can start creating different audiences that you can actually retarget to. Or within that same data, you're able to create what is known as a lookalike audience to be able to target to them as well too. So now let's move on to the ad set level. So we've kind of talked about campaigns. At the ad set level, this is where you're really zoning in on targeting, as I was talking about a little bit earlier in retargeting. Here you're determining who the audience is. So who are you actually going to target? You're able to target by age, you're able to target by gender, you're able to target by interest, you're able to target by behavior, and so on and so forth. So there's all these different targeting that Facebook provides you that is very much demographic based, that will allow you to really zone in on your customer persona. And within that information, you're able to really go after specifically who you want. This is great in the beginning. This is something that you should be doing in the early onset of it. to get data into your platform. But the more granular you stay here and the longer you stay here, it becomes a little bit harder for you to scale the campaigns, and it will matter based off of not only your account's maturity, but also your ad spend level. So keep that in mind. In the beginning, it's good to be granular, but later on, it does become something that hinders you. Also at the ad set level, you're also setting the budget. So how much are you going to be running per ad set per se? As you have more and more ad sets and as you have more history, you can switch this to what is called CBO, which is campaign bid optimization. And then Facebook will then take the total amount that you have set for the campaign and allocate it amongst the different ad sets. Remember, ad sets are important because they're allowing you to target. So you might say, hey, I want to run an ad set, for example, in the US. So you'll have certain copy and creatives for the US, or you might get even more granular. You might say, I want ad set for Los Angeles specifically, so then you get into the city, or you might get even more granular. You might get a little bit larger. You're like, oh, that's too granular. I want it to be just for the West Coast. So you might have an ad set for California, for Nevada, for Oregon, for Seattle, and so on and so forth. So that those different ad sets allow you to create different messaging that might be specific for that geo and for that location. You could do the same thing with personas. You might say, hey, I want to target, female athletic runners if you happen to be Nike, or I want to, so you can get very granular on the different audience segments that you want to do, and so on and so forth. The next is conversion. So it's really important to, within the ad sets, to talk about what are the things you can kind of optimize for if you do a conversion ad. One is information from your website. So these will be events that the pixel themselves is firing, or you're firing server side back into the ad platforms. The other might be forms that users are completing on Facebook themselves directly, so that it could start updating for that. It could be messenger chats. So you are engaging and causing messenger chats and so on and so forth. And it could be Instagram leads, it could be phone calls and app related. So all of these different conversion campaigns are what you can particularly optimize for. These are the ones that are going to give you the most positive return on ad spend, or ROAS, and allow you to really improve and scale your campaign so you can afford more on a monthly basis. And the last is segmenting your audience. We've kind of talked about it already. It becomes really important to segment by location, or segment by, let's say, behavior, and so on and so forth. So as I mentioned earlier, these are critical elements of how you can optimize and improve your campaigns. So we talked about Lookalike a little bit earlier. So let me dig a little bit more here. So how this actually works is you will go through the performance. One way is you will go through the performance of your raw internal data. And you might say, hey, I have a cluster of customers that are performing really well. In the beginning, it used to be you only needed 300 to match. Facebook has really increased that number. They don't necessarily tell you, but the safe number is, let's say, about 1,000 or so, or for a little bit larger than that. You'll be able to deliver that information to Facebook either through API or through a customer list upload. And then Facebook, through that, is able to find other users that are similar to what you have uploaded into your list. It's very important when you're using this strategy to constantly be updating it. So what you can do here is through API or through pixels, be constantly updating your core audience data source or segment. And then Facebook will then, in the same time, continue to update the lookalike audience. If you do not do that, Facebook will lose what it was looking for you, because it won't have current data and there'll be data decay. So the campaign itself will not start performing as well. So now to the ad section. So we've talked about what you can set up in the campaign level. We've talked about how you can optimize in the ad set level. Now we're going to talk about the deeper level, which is the ad level. Here, really, it's about the different ad units you're actually running. So what type of ad creatives are you going to run? What type of media is it going to be? Is it going to be an image-based ad or a video ad? Is it going to be a carousel? Is it going to be a stories? Is it going to be reels? And so on and so forth. This is really where you get into the granular or the more fun part of the creative aspect of it. And you're really setting up the creatives that you will be testing and see which one of them resonates with your different audience members. So now, before we get into that, it's really important to understand the anatomy of creatives on Facebook and Instagram, right? So most creatives or most end up in the feed, and the feed itself has different elements. So the one of the bigger areas is the primary text. Here you can write as many characters as you want. Then you have the image area or the video area, which is this section. Then you have the headline, which is this section. Then you have the description, which is this area, and then you have the call to action. Of the different 5 elements of the feed, the 2 that really matter happen to be the image. This is typically have proven over the years to prove out the most influential of a good ad performance. Right after that is the primary text. So the combo of the image and the primary text do matter. This description does a little, this sort of URL doesn't really matter. This description down here, a little bit, not so much. CTA really doesn't matter. It just gives it, some sort of variation. So if I really had to focus my energy and my time on making ad creatives really work, I would spend a lot of time on imagery and I would spend a lot of time on primary text. These 2 are very critical. And having short, clear headlines can be important, but it can't be so cookie cutter. It needs to be very clear, and it needs to be very short to resonate with the users. Here are the different ad formats, right? You have feeds, you have IG, you have stories and reels, and so on and so forth. In this particular example, we're actually doing a bad job. If you look at it, we're not using the full stories the way we should be using it and having it, 9:16. And also in addition to that, like here, we really have optimized more by the 1:1 grid. So there is room for you to really think about how you should be optimizing, and you should take advantage of the full placement that you have and really be able to tell your messaging and your story. Also in this particular one, as you can see, this is our generative AI one, but it looks exactly like the ad that you might have noticed to join this webinar. We're also done a poor job of refreshing our ads, and you will see that in your own performance. Fortunately for us, our targeting had changed. So some of the audience members that did see this ad is different. So we took an existing ad and switched to targeting. But there's things to keep in mind is that you do want to refresh your ad creatives over time too. So now let's talk about this idea of a multi-arm bandit. If you haven't heard of this, let me kind of explain what this really is. So I know this is an animation that we have for you, but it kind of helps you visualize what we're really talking about. So earlier I told you in an anatomy of an ad, the 2 most important parts are the image and the primary text. So what a multi-arm bandit really is about is how can you start creating a bunch of ads with really just a few variations, right? So you might take 5 images, you might take 5 primary text, and then you might take 5 CTAs or 5 headlines. And you would say, okay, so I have 5 images, 5 primary text, and 5 headlines. And then you can do this notion of creating this way of running ads, which is known as the multi-arm bandit, is where you'll put 5 images, 5 headlines, and 5 primary text, and it's 5 times 5 times 5. So you've really created 125 variations of an ad. And through that, you're quickly able to learn what really resonates and what really works. And what we really recommend in the early stages is not to do slight modifications because you're not going to learn anything. So really focus on the value propositions or focus on the themes of the ad, right? Or really focus on emotional triggers and see which one of these different concepts and make them as drastically different as you can are really resonating with your users, right? So you might do like photorealistic imagery, or you might do pop art imagery, or you might do product imagery, and so on and so forth. And these are like unique, different concepts. or you might do very straight to the point, clear messaging, or you might do humor in your messaging, or you might do sort of exaggerated emotional appeals in your messaging. And through these very drastic changes, you're able to quickly understand where the audience resonates to. So on your second and your third iteration of your ad creatives, you can go deeper and deeper in each one of these concepts. And I'll explain this more in a case study later on that we did this, and we were able to lower the cost per lead of a particular startup from when we first started this activity, again, a brand new account with no real history, from over $100 a lead to less than $8 a lead, that positioned that startup to be able to have breakout success and growth that led them all the way from a seed round to well into a Series A. So now, again, poll time. So we'd like to take a few minutes and ask you guys another question. So this is really about pixel and conversion tracking. As I spoke about earlier, it's one of the foundational things to get the ad set up. As you guys are filling this poll, let me go ahead and pull up a couple things. I'm getting the demo ready to show you guys. So are you currently using a pixel or conversion tracking? And then what challenges do you face in ad optimization tracking conversion? So hopefully everyone's completed the poll. Great. So it looks like half of you have not set up pixel conversion tracking, and a third of you are not sure what pixel conversion tracking is. I'm glad we're actually doing this. There was some internal debate that if we should be doing this. So I'm glad we're actually going to be doing this demo now. And then what challenges do you face in ad optimization? Okay, so you really want to understand pixel implementation and setup. So I'll make sure I take my time and explain that. And analyzing and interpreting conversion data, great. We'll definitely talk about that. And identifying the best performing ads and targeting, amazing. We'll definitely talk about that. Okay. So conversion and optimization, let me try to help you guys get into some of this stuff. So the conversion data is really, really important, because without the conversion data, you really cannot optimize the ads themselves. This is the raw data that the ML algorithms need in order for them to start understanding if it's actually working, if it's not working, and if it's doing the right thing, right? So think about it as it's the positive reinforcement that you need to give it to continue for it to perform the way you need it. Facebook, at the end of the day, wants you to be successful. So whatever information you provide it, it will think it's doing a good job, and it will try to give you more users or more actions that are as rewarded, because it knows as it collects more data for you or gets you more conversions, you will in return increase your spend and try to grow your business. So it turns into this sort of win-win-win relationship, right? Facebook grows, your business grows, and at the end of the day, your customer gets the product or the service that they were looking for, and you help solve their problem as well. So this is why it's really, really important to do that. So how do we actually optimize ads, right? So here I'm gonna first begin at looking at the raw data itself. So if you've done a good job of loading data into the platform, you're going to get a report like this. And you're like, oh my God, what do I do? It just feels like a giant table. How do I actually read this, right? So here, what you would look, and we've done is we've highlighted certain rows for you, so you can kind of see which ones are performing better and which ones are not performing better, and so on and so forth. And we've also added different stages of the lead. So you're not just looking at the top of the funnel, as we like to say, or like the click-through rates, or was it an actual lead, or did the user actually become a good lead, or did the user actually become a converted lead, right? So in this particular scenario, we look at not only the leads, which is this column here, we look at the cost per lead, which is this column here. We look at the dollar amount spent for this particular ad set. We look at what happened with that lead. Did they become a good lead, right? So was it qualified? Was it something we were looking for? Do we look at then again, was this turned into a sign up within the period we ran it? And then on top of that, was this a bad lead that did not do anything at all? Or that, what was the total cost per good lead? And then in addition to that, what was the cost per sign up? So when you look at the full flow like this, you're able to quickly see that the most important metric is actually the cost per sign up. But the cost per good lead is also a leading indicator, because there is a gap between leads and signups. There's a period within this particular account. So when we look at it and we're like, oh, okay, it looks like this particular ad set, which is a lookalike audience, is doing a really, really good job, but this one isn't. So this one is actually is way more expensive than this one. It's almost double the cost on this 1% lookalike audience. So over time, what we do is we will turn this targeting audience out and continue scaling this particular one. And then you might see the same issue here, where this one is very specific and very granular. It might not be performing as well. So we will end up turning this one particular off. And then on top of that, we will then allocate more money to the others. So it's really important not to just look at one metric and make your decision based off of it. You shouldn't look at click-through rates, because that will be ill-informed. You could have ads that are very clickable, but they don't do anything. They don't turn into a lead. They don't turn into a good lead. They don't turn into a customer at the tail end of it. So as you go through this process of really thinking about your user journey, you want to make sure you're firing specific events throughout the whole process of that journey, and you're providing that data back to Facebook. And then you're able to then teach Facebook not only one event, but multiple events in your journey. And as it grows, as the account gets larger and larger, you're able to optimize for these, what is called these deeper funnel events. Okay, now that you have sort of an idea of how to analyze the data, and I think I talked a little bit into how to go about it. How do you actually go about checking? So let's say you get a new ad account, or it's your website and you want to see if everything is set up correctly. So I'm going to show you an example of this particular website. There is this plugin. It's called the Meta Pixel Helper. It's totally free. You can go get it on the Google Chrome, right? So once you install it, all you do is you click on it. You're able to see the pixel ID. You're able to see what events are firing. And then in addition to that, if you wanted to go through it, you can go through and you can fill out different information. And as you click through all of these different things, you will start filling in the different events, and then you'll be able to see if the pixel is firing or not firing, and the different events that are collected for it. So that's how you check here. So this is a client-side version of it. So all the pixels themselves fired, all the events themselves fired, and you're able to collect the data. On this particular website, this is our site. This is the Growth Academy page. So some shameless plug. Sorry, I'm plugging, but I'll talk more about this later. But more importantly, what I want to show you here is, as you'll notice, the pixel's not firing. Here's the guy teaching you about meta pixel tracking. Why isn't it firing on his website, right? So while here it's set up on client side, which works some of the times, doesn't work some of the times, there might be misattribution. The way we've set it up on our website is we've set it up server side. And again, on our first webinar, we totally talk about how to actually set these up. So there's no actual pixels firing here. So anywhere you go on our website, there's nothing firing. So you might be thinking, oh man, the guy who's talking about Meta is not doing it correctly. So what we've done is we've actually set it up server side. So that means our servers using Google Tag Manager server side is communicating and firing different events to Facebook directly using the pixel ID and access token. So this is all automatically happening in the back end, where our server will speak to Facebook server and actually fire the information. The reason we do it this way, it tends to be a lot more accurate, and I'm not going to spend too much time going into this webinar, but it will allow you to get much clearer attribution, and it'll also allow you to overcome some of the limitations that when the cookie goes away in the very near future, as well as with iOS tracking, users might have issues with attribution. This will help also resolve it. So if you want to learn more about this, definitely do check out our first webinar where we get more into the details of it. So let me close these out. Feel free to ask questions if you have on any of these things. So let's move on to the next section. So a lot of what I was talking about is top of the funnel conversions, middle of the funnel conversions, and bottom of the funnel conversions. I think I explained that when I showed the data Google Sheet report, and I showed you, hey, there's different stages that a journey of a user goes through, but it's also the different stages that your ad account goes through. So meaning when it's a new account, you really want to focus on top of the funnel conversions. So this might be as simple as landing page views, right? So in the beginning, you're really trying to get to that 50. Again, it's very important to get 50 conversion events into the system as quickly as possible on a weekly basis. And then as you continue building that, then you'll move on to a different event. Then you might, if you're an e-commerce store, move on to sort of add to cart. So now you're here. Or if you're a SaaS business, you might move into lead form completed. So you might be somewhere here. Then later on, as you continue scaling the campaign, then if you're in e-commerce, you might go to the final payment page. If you're SaaS, you might have gone to, is it a good lead? Did the sales teams get on a call with them? Did they schedule a demo? And then later on, as you continue going further, now if you're a SaaS, you might go into, did they actually sign up? And then if you're an e-commerce store, you might get into, did they purchase? Now, if you go even further than that, so you're wondering, wow, the purchase occurred, what could be further? So then you might go into, if you're a SaaS store, are they an active user and are they referring friends? And if you're an e-commerce store, are they buying more, or are they coming back and becoming a repeat user? And are they continuing to purchase more and more from you? So you continuously go down deeper and deeper into the funnel. And you can go granular, but you need to make sure you have a base. And the more you do this, the smarter the algorithm gets and the more precise it gets, and it's able to lower your overall customer acquisition cost while increasing your LTV, which is the lifetime value. So then this causes your LTV and CAC ratio to become phenomenal, right? It gets you to 5, 6, 7, where you're taking the revenues and dividing it by your customer acquisition cost, which enables you to continue to further reinvest the money back into the platform and further grow and scale your business. So here are some best practices, right? Just things to keep in mind. We shared a little bit earlier, what are the top 9 things to do, but these are like the best things to always know about, all right? So when you're reviewing and analyzing your ads, it's really important to pay attention to the ads frequency. So it's a metric that takes the total impressions that one particular person is seeing and dividing by the reach, which is the audience size. And as you start seeing your ad frequency go up, what you will also start noticing is your CPM starting to go up. And then the combination of the two things means that your creative has sort of died. It's reached its endpoint. It's time for you to refresh that creative or try new creative to really start the process all over again. And as part of what you do in Facebook ad optimization is constantly review the frequency and see what it's reaching and really pay close attention to the CPM. The other one is this whole notion of 50 conversions at the ad set level, right? So really, really pay attention to that. And if you start seeing fluctuations, like crazy fluctuations in your ad, where some days you might get a lot of conversions and some days you might not get any conversions at all, is because the ad set itself or the ads themselves haven't done a great job of going through the learning curve And because of this, Facebook's algorithms is still kind of, looking around and trying to figure things out. And sometimes it might just make sense at that stage to reset your ads and relaunch new campaigns to get the algorithm back into the proper learning mode to ensure that you can go through that phase. The next is the budget. As one of the key things here is, like, let's say if it's performing well, right? So you might get excited. You're like, wow, this ad is doing really, really well. Let me try to really scale it up. When you're small and you haven't really gone through enough data into your ad account, it's really hard to increase the budget. You shouldn't just double. You shouldn't go from, hey, I'm going to spend $50 a day to $100 a day. That could actually put it back into learning mode. So the recommendation typically is to do a 15 to 20% increase in the budget. So you would go from 50 to 55 or 50 to $60, and then wait and let that run for at least a week to continue getting the conversions you need into the system, and then do another increase. When you're larger, it's a little bit easier and you have history into the account. You can do much larger bump ups, but it's still in the high level recommendation I've continually noticed is that whenever you go past that 15 to 20%, you risk putting it back into learning mode. And when you put it back into learning mode, you're resetting the configuration for exactly the targeting that Facebook has deemed as appropriate for your ad, and so on and so forth. So these are some of like the best things to always keep in mind. Another rule of thumb here is, I know it's easy to kind of think about organic and paid posts and how do they play and how do they operate together, right? So on new accounts, it's really, really important to have a good solid baseline of already organic posts in place and a strategy there. And really the strategy in organic is all about building a community, really building awareness, really informing and educating, and really showing as much as you can thought leadership. You shouldn't be aggressively trying to, sell. That should not be your intention at all. It's really more pure branding, more pure content strategy, that what you're setting in place is sort of your, what I would like to say is your brand, right? So it's really more akin to brand style marketing. While the paid acquisition strategy comes into more like really trying to move users and converting them and moving them down the funnel. Well, the organic and how you can play the organic and paid strategy well together is you might use organic to be sort of your top of the funnel, sort of your awareness campaigns, where you might boost them, you might get users to engage with them, and you might really try to get more users to either follow you or like you, and so on and so forth. And one little hack or trick that we didn't show here, or, I hate to say hack, but one really like best practice is on, particularly on Facebook, whenever you run an ad, you can go in the ad and see who's engaged with it, and you can invite them to like your page. And this will allow you to grow your organic base so that you can further continue engaging with this group of users. Now, another thing to talk about really here is Google and Meta, or Facebook and Instagram. And what I like to talk about here is, excuse me, let me get some water, is the difference between high intent and low intent, right? So Google is really about high intent and what people are actively searching and trying to go after. Well, Meta might be about low intent, where it might be akin to they weren't looking for this, or they were more naturally browsing or window shopping, or watching television is more akin to it, or listening to the radio. And what I mean by that is when you become inside of your targeting or your strategies, Meta allows you to learn a little bit more that Google might not. Google says, hey, here's my problem. Go, I need a solution for it. The user is deeper into the buying cycle. They might be doing research, but they actually know what their problem is. On Facebook, they might not even be aware of this. So you might be really trying to make them aware of the problem, and then you might be able to make them aware of the different possible solutions, and then why you should be the right solution, and so on and so forth. So it's really important to understand these different concepts. And one more time, we'd like to do a really quick poll. So this is really about, as you guys are filling this out, let me start getting the next demo ready. So I'm realizing we are getting short on time. So what I'll do with this part of the demo is we did do a ChatGPT demo last time, and that talked about how we can create customer personas, and from the customer personas, you can create ad creatives, and from so on and so forth. So please reference that in terms of ad creation. Today, I'll focus mainly on the ad unit or the actual creatives to help the design team get a head up on creative concepts using both ChatGPT and Midjourney. So looking at the answers, have you ever used AI-powered tools for ad creation? Sort of 50-50. Half of you have, half of you have not. And then what concerns that you have of using AI in ad creation? Uncertainty about accuracy is a third of you. No concerns, I'm open to exploring it, is about 40% of you. Okay, cool. So let me kind of show you this demo really quick. The impact of AI in content and ad creation. So here we go. Let's jump into the demo. So what this is ChatGPT. And what I have here, and we will, by the way, share this actual chat with you guys too, so you can reference it later on. So we will make sure we share this chat so you'll have the full context of the chat, and you'll also see me trying different things. So you'll be able to kind of get a gauge of all the different things we've tried through this chat. So don't worry about, trying to copy this down. We'll give it to you. You will have the chat. And what we did is we kind of told ChatGPT, ChatGPT does not know who Midjourney is. It's after its learning period. So it's important to keep that in mind. But we wanted to train ChatGPT in order to be able to have it create prompts for us that then we can use inside of Midjourney, because Midjourney needs prompts itself. And so what we did is I need to create an image for Instagram. And for that, I will be using the AI image generator called Midjourney. I will provide you a template below that has hard brackets, so these hard brackets that are used for variables that you will replace to make the prompt of Midjourney work. Do you understand my instructions? So I'm basically talking to ChatGPT and I'm giving it the template. Then what we do is it understands it, and then I say, okay, cool. Then I teach it what all the brackets are supposed to be. I say this is the subject, style, environment, what it expects, and what kind of variables, what the answers to the variables will be. Then it responds back to me and says, great, you told me this thing, but I need more. I need you to be much more specific now that I know what they are. And then I say, okay, cool. Can you then do this for me and do an ad for Instagram and for Nike? So then it says, okay, cool. So you want a Nike running shoe as the subject. You want a high contrast with vibrant colors. You want the environment to be on a city street with skyscrapers in the background. You want the mood, the atmosphere to be energetic and inspiring. You want the details and the modifiers to include a runner in the background, slightly blurred to emphasize motion and focus. You want it to be shot on a Sony A1 camera. You want the aperture to be f2.8 to create a shallow depth of field. You want the lighting conditions to be early morning with light coming from behind the shoes, creating a halo effect. And you want composition guidelines, so the rule of third with the shoe placed in the intersection of lower and right grid light. So for those of you who are photographers, you probably understand 100% what all of these are. For some of you who are marketers, you're probably wondering, whoa, how am I going to know these things, right? So, but these are the specificity in this prompt that allows Midjourney to work much clearer and better and give you the appropriate type of imagery you need. Then it puts this prompt together following the template. And once it's done that, you take this whole prompt and you go to Midjourney and you just put imagine, and you basically run the prompt. So, and what you end up getting is an image like this. So what we did is we took that exact ChatGPT basically prompt template, and we programmed ChatGPT to be able to write it for you. And we simplified it for you, for any marketer or designer or anyone else that wants to get creative ideas from it. And then from there, you're able to get the imagery from here. You could do other things. You can change the aspect ratio. So you can make this 9:16 if you wanted to, or if you can make it 16:9. And then you can actually then download the imagery and be able to use it. So this is kind of how you use the combination of ChatGPT as well as Midjourney. So what we showed you was this prompt. You will get access to this. We would like to give a shout out to Rory Flynn on LinkedIn. we used his prompt and we were able to basically train ChatGPT off of it. So we will make sure you get access to this and you're able to dig into all the different variables and all the different things that we talked about that you could potentially be using to improve your prompting on ChatGPT. And then lastly, I'll be really quick here on the case studies. We've already talked about multi-arm Bandit and using all the tools. So what were the actual results that this led to, right? So we ended up doing this, and I mentioned this earlier, when you combine all of these different things. So when you do multi-arm Bandit, you create a bunch of imagery, which is the most important part. You create headlines and text using ChatGPT, and you get to this 125 variations. You run really, really small ads, not too much budget, maybe at most $5 to get you the impressions that you need. You're able to then quickly learn from that. And from that, you're able to then go and start understanding what's working. And you're able to quickly lower your CPL from this particular case study from $100 to $8, which was able to scale us. But that's not enough. So what is more? As we started moving deeper and deeper into the funnels, I talked about that their conversion metrics, but we also got into eventually into behavioral data and how the actual, in this particular account, how the users perform. But it also allowed us to start taking the data, which Facebook was sort of a television, start scaling this out because we now knew customer information. We knew the customer persona, and we were able to now run Google display ads and Performance Max ads or YouTube ads using the lessons learned on Facebook. And then in addition, we can then evolve that and start doing offline channels because we understand the messaging and really scale up and run direct mail or radio. And then once we've kind of done all of these different things for one segment, we're able to repeat this all over again for new audience segments. And this repetitive cycle that's really data-driven, that's using the tools that you have available, allows for ad accounts not only to scale, but also allows the startups themselves to really grow quickly. And so what did this result into? So this, brought CAC below 60% below the industry standard. It made the product became profitable on day one compared to the industry of 9 months. It provided an incredible LTV to CAC, and it really developed a scalable, low intent, not high intent strategy that is delivering systematic growth in this particular startup that we implemented the strategy for. So now I'm going to leave it for any Q&A. Thank you everyone for coming here. I'll give you guys a few seconds to make sure I've captured all the questions. So the pixel itself, one of the questions here is how do you think I need a pixel if I track ads with UTM? So the UTMs themselves, what they're really important for is Google Analytics, which is for your own measurements and for your analytics reports, but they're not giving the data back into Facebook itself. So the gap here is, while you might understand if the ad themselves is working, Facebook doesn't. So what the pixel allows you to do is take the information that Facebook needs to optimize, and you're able to provide that information back into the ad account. So that's the main difference. See if there's any other questions. Okay, perfect. I think most of the other questions hopefully have been answered. Feel free to answer any more if you might have. So next steps, what we get after the webinar, we're going to send you 3 really more in-depth articles about the stuff that we talked about. So feel free to browse and use that. We're also going to give you a PDF that allows you to build your Facebook content strategy and scheduling strategy. In addition, obviously, you'll get a copy of this webinar recording. And then we'll also, in addition for bonus, throw in this ChatGPT chat that we did here. So you can go ahead and play with ChatGPT's chats if you like and prompts. And on top of that, be able to utilize that to create any mid-journey ads you would like as well too. So our next webinar will also be setting up today. We will be having another webinar. If you enjoyed what we did on Facebook here, we will give you the same lessons along the way that we've learned on Google Ads and how we've been able to scale Google Ads similarly from 0 to actually larger than Facebook. We've been able to get some of the Google Ads up to $500,000 a month. So we will walk you through all of those different strategies that we put in place. And lastly, for most people here, we are hiring. So If you're looking for joining our team, feel free to go to our career page. We are actively hiring growth marketers and digital marketers, marketing assistants, content writers, and UI visual designers. So feel free to join our career page and apply. We currently have active 6 roles open. So we are looking to find quality talent that wants to join our team and really take advantage of using some of the more modern techniques and be able to really work in a fast-paced environment and really work in a place where you really make an impact and make a difference on the companies that you're working with, as well, not just for the startups themselves, for you as you continue to learn, as well as the organizations that you're partnering with. And then lastly, A Growth Academy. I'd like to take a little bit of time and kind of talk about this. We are launching A Growth Academy. So let me pull that up again for you guys. So we are launching A Growth Academy in September of this year. It's going to be a 6-week curriculum. It's totally free. There's no charge here. So feel free to go to our website to apply. We're going to be getting 25 students. They're going to be meeting 3 times a week. Weekly commitment is going to be 1 day of class, 1 day of sort of office hours, working sessions in person, and then 1 day of peer review where we will be talking about the different things that you learn in that week's worth of class. So we'll be meeting 3 times a week. It'll be a hybrid environment, both online as well as in person. Students will be totally free. All would be merit-based scholarships. We're going to only be accepting 25 students, unfortunately. Space is limited. In addition, you will be partnering with startups themselves. So we will be selecting 5 startups that you will be working with, and we will be creating 5 teams of 5 that will be working with 1 startup directly through the course curriculum. And you will be running not only things you learn in theory, so not talking about just the concepts themselves, but you will be implementing those and seeing the actual results of what you're implementing and learning from the actual doing of the actual campaigns. So we're going to mix theory with practice. And that's really it. Thanks again, everyone, for coming today. I really appreciate your time. And feel free to connect with me if we're not already connected on social media. I'm available on LinkedIn and Twitter. And if you have any other further questions, feel free to always reach out, and we're here to answer anything that you might have. Thank you.